Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Assalamu alaikum. Bring the chair for him. Bring him a chair. So just to review, we finished the fourth section. There's 4 sections that we have to cover in the introduction just to know what the fiqh rulings are, right? So we said fiqh is divided in 4. That's the main thing we have to first know. And that should be just like second nature for us, okay? Fiqh is divided in 4. Ibadah is drawn from the business transactions, then family provisions, legal procedures, offenses of law. Then under these types, now why does it come business transactions after ibadah? There shouldn't be a pause here. Come on. Why does business transactions come after ibadah, and why does it come before family provisions?
You got to have some type of income in order to get married.
So the fiqh of just placing that there first is important as well, to understand that business transactions precedes, learning how to have a skill and provide, precedes establishing a family. That's fiqh too. Do you guys understand that? Yeah. So the order is as important as what is there. Knowing them is important, but knowing the order is there. Does that make sense? Yeah. Why does government come last? At legal procedures, we report the fiqh of the slave as he deals with the court. Okay? So why does that come forth? Why didn't we deal with that first? Okay, again, the first thing first is me and my Lord. What's the first thing? Me and my Lord. That's the most important thing is me and my Lord. And we build from that individual to being a beneficial person in a society. That's what having business transactions and knowing the skills. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the best of you, the best of the people are those who are anfa'ahum, the most beneficial to their society. No, their society. That means because, again, we go back to the principles of fiqh, whereas that a person's earth, customs, are taken into consideration when deriving rulings. So what is good for you to do is based on the society that you live in and the needs of that particular society. Does that make sense? Yes. Mm-hmm. If we live on a beach, then we should be good fishers. And it doesn't make a difference if we could ride horses. Right? Right. So then this goes back to custom. And it's vital and important that we understand this. Because again, what did we say? I said you have to learn fiqh in the context of what? History. Okay? History. They have to be read together. Didn't I say we're supposed to read a book a week? No. Yes. Okay, so these weeks, what you should be trying to read is stories of the prophets, stories of the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his companions. Stick to those during this particular course. The Sahaba and the life of the Prophet ﷺ. What will happen as we go through some of these laws, we can put them in the context that the Prophet ﷺ put them. I mentioned earth, custom. It's vital and important that we understand that. When the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, he made a public notice. Some people call it a contract or withaq, which is basically a public notice on how things are going to run. Everybody follow me? Yeah. Now, this is going to be in the second part of our lesson on Monday, inshallah, but I'm going to mention it now so you can get it in context. One of the things he says, or two of the things he says in there, as he starts to say, he says, all the customs of the Ansar, right, the Aus and the Khazraj, will remain the same, right? They will keep their customs, and all the blood debts that they still owe, all existing contracts, and then they're adding to those things the particulars that we're going to put forth now with the agreements of the unification of the city. What's the first thing he said, though? Their customs will remain. Does that make sense? I mentioned that because last time I was here, I mentioned how we got out of some of the customs that we were raised upon with respecting a house of worship. Right? You don't lose those things when you come to Islam. But there are some things you use. Go ahead. Bismillah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu
محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. There are some things that we lose. You know, when Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was establishing the society, and this is important for us to understand because a lot of times the modern scholars that are not living in lands that have kuffar do not address these issues. Okay? They go over them. Why? Because it's not important in their society. Does that make sense? The second reason is they don't have the same experience in those issues. So when it talks about what the Prophet ﷺ did in Medina with the Muslims and breaking the ties of alliance, the allegiances that they had established through their kafir relations, the relation through clan. You know, I'm always telling people you have to change your kafir name and separate yourself, and people don't like to talk about it because that is of the reason why they don't, because they are afraid to break that alliance. Okay? And that naming, and the Prophet ﷺ was breaking all those alliances. Not himself, Allah did it. He was breaking all those alliances and establishing a new alliance based on Iman. Not based on family, not based on, you know, economic relationships that they had or geographic, regional relationships that they had. I'm Jamaican, I'm New Yorkan, I'm Robertson, or I'm a Williams, and these things that denote something different. You know, in fact, are not your actual names, but denote the allegiance to your slavery. Does that make sense? And to break those things is to make a clear, you know, hey, I'm out over here. But Allah demanded that at that time in order for there to be the believers to be upon each other. And because La ilaha precedes establishing Muhammad Rasulullah, illallah, right? La ilaha precedes, then breaking those alliances precedes establishing the relationship of trust amongst each other. And this is where we fail today, because we're not willing to make that overt step. Okay? And so that is what comes here when we talk about first me and my Lord, me and having a skill where I'm beneficial and I'm committed, that lack of commitment. And then once we have a skill, now I can get married and establish a family, right? And once I know the Lord of the family is the smallest unit of what? Society. And that's why we move next to the fiqh of the slave as he deals with the court. The court represents the authority in the land, right? The accepted authority in rule. By what are they going to rule? They're going to rule by Islam if they started with ibadah, right? Because the first chapter in ibadah is aqidah. Does that make sense? Yes. So once we establish that, and the last chapter in legal procedures in government is jihad. So you start with aqidah to end in jihad. But a lot of people come to Islam and the first thing they come out their mouth is jihad. And the concept of it is this physical fight thing. And that's based on naivety, immaturity, and ignorance. Okay, and then we all act like that. There's some validity to that and say, oh, don't say jihad. As though, you know, we don't have any sense of our own to articulate our deen. Does that make sense? No. So, we're at legal procedures. We report the fiqh of the slave as he deals with the court. The laws of janayah. These are the crimes. Okay? The laws of janayah. Applying hudud. The janayah are the hudud of the punishment. Capital punishments. Who gets his hand cut? Why are these stuff? Nakalan, ibratan. to be an example so that when they watch the TV show, what's the show they had, Heat, or one of these other things, or Darth Vader, and all these other things where the killer, the bad guy, is now a hero to the children or to the adults. And they want to be like him, and then what happens? They get the sins of the one they want to be like, right? Because Allah's messenger told us that if you desire to do a bad deed, but you're prevented through circumstance, and you still get that bad deed. If you said, oh, if I had the money like, let's say some person, whoever he is, some entertainer or something like that, and he's fahish and obscene, oh, I do what he did, well, then you just did. And you just got the sin of it. Does that make sense? So, this is the fare of television to our minds, but Islam with the hudud doesn't make it glorious to be a criminal. You steal, hand gets chopped. You lie, bring your back. Okay? And there's nothing glorious about that. So that's the purpose of the hudud, to put crime in its proper place. Humiliate the one who does the crime and make everyone else who sees it not want to be like that individual. So everybody follow me? Yeah. The steps that we take when diyat is pursued, to knowing how to pay the recompense when somebody is seeking diya. A diya is you violated somebody, you threw a rock when you know you're not supposed to throw rocks, and you took someone's eye out. Now you owe that person an eye. How much that eye costs. And even if that person, doesn't have the money, his family does. And we go to his family. Why? Because now we're showing, Allah is teaching us through this, the accountability of the family. And that we are all, to have to take each other into, what is the word I'm looking for? Accountability, basically. Yeah, we have to depend on each other. And that you are answerable up for your brother's actions. So you better hold his hand. Right? You better hold his hand. Because all of y'all be eating peanut butter and jelly. Right? Until we pay off that of the family. And so that kills the mentality we have in the Western society. You can't tell me nothing. I'm grown. Right? That diya changes that a whole lot. Okay? So, then we go into, again, legal procedures. The amen is swore. The shahada is seen. This is clarifying what these particular terms mean in general. Because we see these in ibadah, we didn't mention them. Because everybody knows Aqidah, Tahara, preceding Salah, Janazah, for all when the rich pays the cash, the calf when you spend it in a Hajj for whoever's going to pay for the flight. But after that, we define each one of the terms because we know people may not be familiar with them. So we say the amen is sworn. Because it's called amen because of the word yameen. Because you normally raise your hand to do it, your right hand. That's why it's called amen is sworn. Shahada is seen. So if you didn't see it, you're not a shahid. Okay? Oh, I heard so-and-so told you, you're not a shahid. Shahada is seen. Qada is a judgment. Iqra is a plea. Okay? Someone is saying that they did something, they owe. Jihad is a ruling the mufti must make. So jihad is not just a term we could throw out there. It's a ruling that the chief justice, and this is what is referred to when we talk the mufti, the chief justice of an Islamic society. So now we done put some conditions there. So that means it has to be an Islamic society, first and foremost, for it to be established that a jihad be called in the first place. And their chief justice is the one that declares it. Does that make sense? Yes. Not any old scholar with normal mistakes. And we spoke about here, if you look at the NBA, there's lots of basketball players, right? They're all good basketball, even great basketball players. But there's only a few of them that are the all-stars, right? And so the ones that are the regular guys that riding the bench and stuff like that, whether they're scholars or they're regular basketball players, those are not the ones that they're going to be on the highlights normally. Likewise, as there are scholars of different levels and degrees, those are not the ones that are going to be making this legal ruling of jihad. Okay? Even if they got a whole bunch of Facebook likes or they got YouTube channels, doesn't make a difference. You have to be a chief justice. You have to be a senior scholar appointed in that position to make that critical determination. Does everybody follow me? Yes. And if we understand that, then a lot of things will get clarified. Because what happens in the absence of this simple knowledge, the kuffar are able to present a picture, a warped picture of what's going on. And then you may be tended to tricked into believing that. Not being able to articulate, no, that could not be the case because there is a system that already is established. Does everybody follow me? All right. So now open up your books and go to the next line. Jihad is a ruling that Mufti must make, not any other scholar with no mistakes. If, go ahead. No, I want to hear it louder, please. No students familiar with basics in fiqh, nor students familiar with basics of fiqh. In fiqh, okay. Go ahead. But not yet Quran or the Arabic. If hadith, go ahead. If hadith, usul, and histories. No, histories, you're right. Histories. Still partially clouded in mystery. Keep going. Refrain from speech. Refrain from speech for what can he teach? Refrain from speech. For what?
What can he teach?
For what
Can he teach?
can he teach?
To have little knowledge.
To have
Little knowledge and teach it to teach.
little knowledge
Is to cheat.
and teach
Is to teach.
is to cheat. And what we mean is it's backwards. Spell teach backwards. You understand? It's backwards. We say it's backwards. Instead of saying backwards, we just put the word backwards. Then you see what it says? Now, why did we do it this way? Nor students familiar with basics of fiqh. Now people can judge themselves because most of us are just familiar with just the basics of fiqh or in fiqh, okay? But not yet Quran or the Arabic. And being conversational Arabic is not what's inclined or not what's intended when you say to know Arabic. To know Arabic for a scholar is a minimum master's degree. Does that make sense? Minimum. What we would equate to a master's degree. Because once you learn Ajurumiyya, that's a master's degree right there. Lamiyya Talaf, that's a master's degree right there. You know, you're learning the poetry, that's a master's degree right there. Knowing Balagha, that's a master's degree. Doing Al-Fiqh to Grammar, that's a master's degree right there. And you put all together, that's a bunch of PhDs, isn't it? But that's not even, then we go to Al-Fasih, then we read, Lisan al-Arab, and because you have to have Lugha, okay? And if you don't have these things, I say shut up. Because that's what our teachers used to say. That's the minimum you should do before you talk about that you're an Arabic scholar. What did the Shaikh, Shaikh Shaikh said? If you can't read Lisan al-Arab, then you need to get another job. La yuslihu lil ilm. If you can't sit and read that book, he said he read it twice and was reading the third time. Okay? And he told that to Ali Sheikh. If you're not ready to read that book, then you need to get a different job. You're not patient for that. But a lot of guys, what happens is this perpetration of the fraud. You learn conversational Arabic, then people come back here, and the blind people are getting led by the guy with something in his eye. You know? And he thinks, oh man, he can talk Arabic. So what? The cab driver can talk Arabic. I'm talking about overseas. See? So what I'm saying is that we have to stop getting tricked. And when we talk about Quran, we're not just talking about memorizing the Quran in one qira'at. We're talking about memorizing the Quran in all the qira'at. In all 10 of them. Why? Because the first tafsir of the Quran is what?
Quran.
The Quran. And the first tafsir of the Quran with the Quran is that same ayah in a different qira'ah. Maliki Yawmiddin. What's the tafsir? Maliki Yawmiddin. Do you get my point?
Yes.
And if you don't know that qira'ah, you don't know that change of the difference between Maliki and Maliki, then you're missing a tafsir before you go elsewhere. Does everybody follow me?
No.
Astaghfirullah. Shukran. We're going to come back, inshallah.